So this is the first of two presentations about Module 4, Topic 5 on percent frequency histograms. In the workbook, this topic begins on page 66. For what I'm doing today, making the histograms by hand, if you want to follow along and do the same thing along with the demonstration, you will need the decimal graph paper, which you can find in the back of the workbook on the very last page. So you might want to pause the video to print out a page of that. You'll need one for following along with the demonstration, and also one for doing the homework assignment. So I have a PowerPoint presentation set up here, and let me just change the display to put that up. And here we go. Where we left off with this in previous sessions was that we had made a distribution table for the diameters of the oak trees. And so we had set up the class boundaries and worked out what percent of the trees falls in each class. So the column over on the far right is the percent frequencies. And our goal is to make a graph that looks like this, where we have bars, and the height of each bar is the percent frequency. Like class A in the table that we were just looking at had a percent frequency of about 11.1%. And so this bar has a height of 11.1. And I just want to go through the steps on how you set this up. So how did we get to where we are? The topic on number line plots, all the way back at the beginning, Module 4, Topic 1, discussed how to choose the scale on the x-axis. It has to be a power of 10. So my only choices here were to go 1, 2, 3, or else 10, 20, 30. I may not have already mentioned in a previous lecture, I don't think I did, but you don't always have to start with 0. I mean, I could start at 5, 6, 7, 8 like that, and that would be perfectly okay. There's a little squiggle that you make, a little symbol called an axis break. It's mentioned in the workbook, and if you're going to leave out some numbers, you use that symbol. But ours needs to start from 0 because the left boundary, the lower class boundary of class A, was 0. So we worked out that the scale had to be a power of 10. And then in the topic on classifying data, we used Sturgis's rule to decide that we needed 6 classes, and we set up class boundaries so that the width of each class would be a whole number multiple of the size of one little tick mark. Okay, so our scale is 1. That's the distance between two heavy grid lines on the paper, was 1 inch of diameter. Each little tick mark is 1/10 of an inch, and the width of our class should be a whole number of tenths of inches, so that the vertical boundaries of the bars representing the classes should fall right on the grid lines. And then there was a section on the frequency distribution tables, and that's how we worked out this table that's the source of our data. Okay. So the first step is to decide how tall the histogram is going to be. And our biggest percent frequency was near 30%. So you will still have the distribution table for this from a previous exercise, and the tallest bar was going to be 30%. So that tells me how to make the scale on the vertical axis. So here again, my choices are 1, 2, 3, or 10, 20, 30, or 100, 200, 300. If the whole height of the thing is only going to be 30, it makes sense that the scale should be 10. And then our vertical axis is just over 3 inches long and fits nicely on the paper. And the title is Distribution of Diameter of Oak Trees, the same as the title for the distribution table. On the y-axis, we're making a percent frequency histogram, so these numbers along the y-axis are going to be percent frequencies. And then the second step, after you make the vertical axis, the y-axis, you make the horizontal, or the x-axis. And you use the same scale that we used for the number line plot in an earlier topic. Now on the test, you'll be asked to put the dots for the number line plot right in the same picture with the histogram. But the dots are not really part of the histogram itself. That's the number line plot. On the test, you can put them both together right in the same space. But here, since I'm just demonstrating a histogram, I've drawn the picture without the dots. And each bar corresponds to the percent frequency of the class. I've labeled the names of the classes A through F. I have labels on both axes, and I have the title. And oh, you know, I really should have put in the footnote here. It's provided with the data listing. So whenever it's not already present, you need to show whoever's looking at your graph needs a way to see where the data came from. And I forgot my footnote here. But anyway, that's all for this presentation. And you can do this for a different set of data on the homework. And the challenge is to set up the scale and the class boundaries correctly. And that's all. So see you next time.